in responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. We thank you for taking the time to be with us this morning. We have 10 students joining us under the directions of the Young Global Citizens Club, founded by Monsieur Marc-André Tremblay, ici à École Saint-Sacrement. They will take turns asking you questions to learn more about how we can keep our families and our community safe and healthy. Thank you again. And we are going to get straight into it and start with our first question.
Great. Thank
Dr.
you.
Henry, my name is Marc-André, and we had over 100 questions we could have asked today. If we run out of time, when it's get like 3 minutes before, we'll put an end to it and we'll do a closing. But we really, really appreciate your time. Georges Chouinard, grade 3, St. Helens School.
Good morning, Dr. Henry. My name is George Chouinard. I'm in grade 3 at St. Helens School. My question is, how was the vaccine for COVID-19 found and created? And will kids have to take the vaccine? Thank you.
Oh, very good question. So thank you. It's really a pleasure to be with you here today. And I'll start by saying that I'm on the traditional territories of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, which are now the Esquimalt and the Songhees First Nations here in what we call Victoria, British Columbia. So I'm really grateful to be able to speak to you from these traditional lands. And that's a really great question, because the vaccine that we have now in Canada, there's 2 of them that have been approved for use so far. And both of those are this really neat new technology called messenger RNA. So what it does is it takes a little piece of the genetic material from the virus, the piece of the genetic material that codes for the protein that's on the outside of the virus, you know, that spiky bit on the outside of the virus. And what they've been able to do is take that and manufacture it, make a whole bunch of copies of it, wrap it in a little bit of like tissue paper, and it's what we call a lipid nanoparticle, which means a little bit of fat globule that surrounds this very delicate piece of RNA. And then that's the vaccine that gets injected into our body, and it goes into our cells. And we use that piece of genetic material, which is called an antigen, to develop a response. So our immune system says, ooh, I recognize that protein as something different, and we develop antibodies. So then if we get exposed to the virus, then we already have these antibodies that recognize the virus and stop us from getting sick with it. So it's really cool, neat, new stuff all around how we use genetic material. And that's very exciting. I think it's really exciting how effective this vaccine is too. It protects people as much as 95%, which is amazing. So we're really, really lucky to have these good vaccines and to get them in such a short period of time. Right now, none of the vaccines that have been developed around the world, including the 2 that we have in Canada right now, have been tested in children. And the good thing about young people is you tend to have milder disease and not get as sick from it, although some people, of course, do. So right now, the vaccines are for adults, and particularly we're starting at the top and protecting our grannies and grandpas and our seniors to make sure that they're protected first, because they're the ones who get more severe illness with this virus. In the future, there might be vaccines for young people as well.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
St. Augustine School, Amanda.
Hi, my name is Amanda Leung. I'm in grade 7 at St. Augustine School. Thank you, Dr. Henry, for the extraordinary work you do for all British Columbians. The question my classmates and I would like to ask you is, if the majority of the COVID spreaders are 20 to 30-year-olds, should we vaccinate them before the elderly? Thank you.
Yeah, also a really cool question, and one that we've been thinking about. You know, what's the best strategy for protecting the most people in the shortest amount of time. So there's a couple of things that we've looked at for that. One is how much vaccine we have. What's the epidemiology, which means who's getting infected and where and in what settings, as well as who the vaccine works in. So there's a couple of things that we've done around modeling, and we've modeled if we give it to older people first, does that save the most lives and does that prevent the most hospitalizations with the amount of vaccine that we have, or should we target it on the people who spread it first? And that's one of the things that we look at for influenza, for example, because we know that kids spread influenza really easily and don't get that sick with it. So sometimes vaccinating young people for influenza means that we protect the older people as well. It doesn't work quite the same way with COVID. What we're finding is with the vaccine we have, our best strategy to keep the most people safe is to vaccinate older people first. So we're vaccinating older people and people who work in our healthcare system, because we want to make sure that hospitals can care for everybody, whether you have COVID or whether you have a heart attack or whether you've fallen and broken your arm. So those are the focus right now. As we get more vaccine, we'll be going down in age and vaccinating more and more people. But once we get to a certain point when we have enough vaccine, then that's where we can stop the transmission in the community. So the big thing for all of us right now is we have enough vaccine to protect our elders and our seniors, and that's where our focus is now. But we all have to keep doing the things that we're doing to prevent the spread in our community, to protect those who aren't yet vaccinated, and to make sure we're not getting sick and spreading the virus to each other as well.
Thank you.
We also have schools from all over BC. Selkirk Montessori School in Victoria.
Hello, my name is Spina, and I'm part of Selkirk Montessori School in Victoria. This is our question. How will the COVID-19 vaccines teach us to create new vaccines if another pandemic comes out?
Yeah, well, this is kind of what's exciting. One of the really, I mean, I've spent my whole life looking at vaccines, and well, at least my career, so the last long time. And you know, I know a lot about vaccines and different types of vaccines, and we don't have great vaccines for influenza. But this is a whole new way of looking at producing vaccines that doesn't rely on eggs and other things that make it tricky to make a vaccine. And what it is that little piece of RNA can be modified really quickly. So we've been looking at that for these new variants that have shown up. So the virus has changed a little bit, and we call it a mutation or a variant. And we know that we're a little bit worried. Some of those variants mean it can transmit a whole lot easier. And we're worried that it might, the vaccine might need to be changed. But they can do that in a relatively short period of time. And the fact that these vaccines are really effective, you know, 95% of people were protected after the first shot even. So that's really exciting. And I think it's going to change our whole way of thinking about vaccines for the future. I mean, this whole platform didn't just arise out of the blue a year ago. People had been working on this concept for decades, and they had been trying to make a vaccine for Zika virus, which is a mosquito-borne virus that arose a few years ago. And they were trying to make a better vaccine for rabies as well, which is something that's thankfully rare. But anyway, the fact that this coronavirus came up, and the people who were working around the world on these messenger RNA concepts got a whole lot of money and shared all their ideas. And it just shows what can happen if we all work together around something, and we put a concerted effort and the funding that's required to do these studies. It's really remarkable. We take leaps and bounds in what we can do now with immunization. So I think it's going to make a huge difference for whether new viruses arise, but also going back and looking at, can we make a better vaccine for influenza? Could we even make a vaccine for HIV, which is something that has eluded us for so long? So I think it's a really exciting new platform that has a whole bunch of potential.
Thank you.
Kate Devine from Cloverdale.
Hello, Dr. Henry. My name is Kate Devine from Cloverdale Catholic School. And my question is, when will school return back to normal? And can we expect that in September, schools will go back to the way they were before the pandemic? Thank you.
Mm. You know what? That's also one of those questions that I wish I had a crystal ball. As we get more people protected and we understand more about how the virus spreads and where it spreads, and the seasonality that goes with it. So we were learning. I mean, this virus we've only had around for about a year now. And we are learning that it spreads more easily in the winter than the summer, at least in the northern hemisphere. So as we get more people protected through vaccination, and we learn how long that protection lasts, we're going to get more and more back to normal. So yes, our goal is to have everybody who is eligible for a vaccine and wants one to be protected by the end of the summer into September. So yeah, once we get through this school year, I think next school year will look a lot more like normal. But we'll also have to be really careful and watch again. And there's a couple of things we'll never stop doing. So staying home when you're sick, covering your mouth when you cough, cleaning your hands regularly. We'll never stop doing that.
Thank you.
Lauren from St. Mary's School.
Good morning, Bonnie Henry. I'm Lauren Warwick from St. Mary's School in Vancouver. My question is, how long do you believe we will be required to wear our masks in BC?
Yeah, that's those two questions go together, don't they? So as long as we're protected, then we probably, once we get to that point where we don't have a lot of circulation anymore, then we won't need to wear masks on an ongoing basis like we are right now. And we'll be able to come together again and have those hugs and celebrations that we're used to having. So I think, by the time next school year starts, we'll probably hopefully be in that position. But we'll also, we'll change and adapt, and masks will be part of our lives. It'll be more acceptable for all of us to wear a mask if we're not certain if we're feeling well, when we're going outside, if we have to go outside. So it does, I think it has changed us about how we understand, how we protect each other and protect ourselves from these respiratory infections that we see every year. And we only need to look at the things we did this year have meant that we have not seen any influenza, which is crazy because usually every year in schools we have lots of people who get sick with influenza and colds and stuff. So I think there's going to be a place for masks, but having to wear them all the time and keeping our distance, our safe distances like we're doing right now, that will go away once we're all protected.
Thank you.
Charlotte from St. Francis Xavier's.
My name is Charlotte, and I am from St. Francis Xavier School in Vancouver. My question is, what will happen after the vaccine is distributed? Will Canadians go back to their lives before the pandemic? Thank you.
Yeah. You know what? I think we will in many ways go back to our lives. But this pandemic has been something that has affected the whole world. And it's shown us that in some places in the world, some people are better able to withstand this type of a storm than others. And I think we've all seen that. Some people are able to adapt okay. Some people, their parents are essential workers, and it's really challenging if they're home from school. The importance of our community and the importance of school in our lives, these are things that I think, maybe had lost sight of. So while yes, we'll go back to what many of the things we used to do, the things that we really loved doing, like being together on team sports and having parties and birthday parties and celebrations of graduations and all those things, yeah, those will come back. But I hope that we won't forget that some people are better able to get ahead in these things, and some people fall farther behind, and we have to make special efforts to make sure that we're bringing everybody along and holding everybody up.
Thank you.
Blessed Sacrament School, Valentina.
Hello, Dr. Henry. My name is Valentina Valenti, and I'm in grade 6 at Blessed Sacrament School. Dr. Henry, sometimes very young children struggle with safety protocols. Do you have a message for them so they can take your message to heart? Thank you.
Yeah, we all know that. I mean, we've all been learning how to wear a mask, how to put it on, not to fiddle with it, not to touch our eyes. Every time I go up in front of the podium for the media briefings, I have to remind myself, okay, don't rub your nose. Once I coughed and I got all these emails and social media, oh dear, there's something wrong. So, and it's even harder for young kids. They always, they want to socialize, and we want to put things in our mouths, and we want to be with each other. So I think there's a couple of things, especially at school. What we need to focus on, not so much is, how much is 2 meters when you're a young child. It's more about not having physical contact. And okay, no hugging right now. We'll do air hugs this year, or air high fives. Making sure that we try and keep our distance in a way that allows people to socially interact and to be happy with each other and to see each other, but also keeping a little bit of distance. And some of the really important things is encouraging and young people how to wear a mask appropriately and how not to fiddle with it, but it being okay if you're sitting down to take it off, because we know that especially young people, keeping one on all the time can be really hard. And I think the other thing is the older school students in school can model the good behavior, making sure that you're not hanging out with your friends and sharing drinks or anything like that, and keeping your distance and modeling that for the young students as well.
Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Our Lady of Assumption.
Hello, Dr. Henry. My name is Kai. How does public health plan for future viruses? What have you learned from COVID-19 that will help with your planning?
Wow, you know what? This was something that I've been doing for a long time, is planning for pandemics. And we always thought it would be influenza, but this is a coronavirus. And I happened to be involved in the city of Toronto when we had the SARS virus, which was a new one as well. It's also a coronavirus. So a lot of the things that we had planned happened, and it kind of it was kind of a shock. But we've learned a lot about how the virus transmits, what are the important things that we need to know to make sure we're giving the right advice, how to make sure that we're taking into account where the virus is infecting people. And there's just tons of stuff that we had thought of in the theoretical, but now are living through. And yeah, there's a whole bunch of things that we've uncovered, particularly, how do we protect people in long-term care homes? Our grandparents, our aunties and uncles, and people who are in those types of settings. And that's been really challenging. But the other thing that I think is really important is that we are a global community. This has shown us that when a virus arises in a country that's on the other side of the world, it affects us all. So I really believe that we need to use this to work together again. We lost an opportunity back in January last year to support China in controlling this virus at source. And working together around the globe, when we look at vaccines, it's sharing of information and sharing of scientific knowledge that has helped us develop a vaccine. We need to do that better when new viruses arrive so that we can stop these things from happening in the future.
Thank you.
Pablo.
Hello, Dr. Bonnie Henry.
Louder.
My question is, we would like you to help students understand why we need to close churches across BC to in-person worship, while still allowing other facilities such as restaurants, shops, and schools to remain open.
Yeah, So as you know, we've been looking at all of the different places where the virus has been spreading. And when people come together, this virus can spread. And we know it's transmitted from people. That's how people get sick. It's when somebody who doesn't realize it, has a mild illness or is sick or has very little symptoms and goes into a place, particularly an inside place with others. And then we know that things like singing together, and when we go to a faith service or a church service, it's all about being together. And we recognize that it's very difficult for people to keep their safe distances. And so we put some limits on the numbers of people that can come together to try and prevent it from spreading to large numbers of people. And we had a consistent limit of 50. And we were doing that for many, many months. But in October, November, we started to see that this virus was spreading much more quickly. And we've had a number of spread in different faiths, whether it's churches or temples or synagogues. There have been many outbreaks that have passed from people to people. And one of the challenges, and I know it's so hard, but the challenge we have is we know that there's a lot of older people that come to church services, and they're more at risk of getting very sick with this virus. So this was one of the measures that we took to try and support people. And I've met with many faith leaders, including many of the church leaders, over many times over the last year, to support people in how we do come together to support each other in our faith during a crisis like this, when getting together physically is very dangerous. So this is through that period of time right now where it's most dangerous. The things that we have in place in restaurants, for example, where it's a small group of people that aren't related to each other, who sit at one table with barriers and masks, and that makes it a much different situation than a church service, for example. Same with a retail store. It's a very qualitatively different experience to go and stand in a line and buy some groceries, for example. So we look at where we're seeing spread and what are the least invasive things we can do to prevent people from getting sick. And I've just been so proud of and so grateful for our many faith leaders who have come together to support everybody in getting through this and doing it safely.
Thank you.
Queen of all saints.
Hi, I'm Jacob Yu in grade 7 at Queen of All Saints School Elementary. And we've been told that viruses are humans' number one enemy, that viruses are always one step ahead of us. What is your opinion on this? Do you think eliminating viruses should be our country's top priority?
Yeah, you know what? I agree with that in many ways. You know, viruses are out there. There's so many of them. And, you know, unlike bacteria can do a lot of good. You know, we all have bacteria that are on us. They help us digest food. It's all kinds of things. But viruses, mostly for humans, don't do a lot of good. They just cause illness. But the challenge we have is there's no way we could eradicate viruses. They're in the environment, they live in animals, they live in plants, they live in humans. And the only thing that we can do is try and detect them and find ways to protect ourselves from getting sick with them. So it's a very challenging thing. Viruses will be out there in nature. There's many that we don't even know yet that are out there, and there's no way we can get rid of them all. So it really is about being prepared, taking those basic things every day that keep us protected. So things like washing our hands, covering our mouth when we cough, making sure that we stay away from others if we're not feeling well. Those are all things that protect us from viruses.
Thank you.
St. Francis of Assisi.
Hello. Wait.
I like your mask.
Leonardo, go ahead.
Yep, sorry. Is there, wait, I'm sorry, there's an echo.
Mrs. Yang, you have to mute yourself or there's an echo.
Yeah, that's right.
Go ahead, we can still hear you.
Okay. Is there any way that this pandemic experience will benefit the current youth generation moving forward?
That is a really good question. One of the things that I've been really concerned about is the impact on youth, and particularly when you're at the point of graduation, whether it's moving from one school to the next or graduating from high school, and not having those important connections and rituals that we all need in our lives. And I was really concerned when school closed and there was no in-classroom learning for a lot of people. That was very, very hard on families, on school communities. So we've put a lot of time and effort into making sure we get our schools back because we know how important it is for young people. But the other thing that I have learned from you and from youth across the province and across the country is that young people are adaptable and resilient and strong. And it is all of the things that you're learning about how to get through a really traumatic time like this that is going to make you stronger and more kind and supportive of each other in the future. This has been a really challenging year and it's been hard for all of us. And, I'm just so heartened by the work that you guys are doing to stay strong through all of this. And I think you're all superheroes for getting through it, and we have to celebrate that.
Dr. Henry, do you still have time for 2 more questions?
Sure.
Oh, thank you so much. Irene from St. Michael.
Hello, my name is Irene Lim from St. Michael's Elementary School. Thank you for your consistent and kind leadership. How do you find the courage to continue even when people disagree or are critical? Thank you.
Oh, yeah, the tough questions for last, hey? You know what? This has been a very, very challenging year. And yeah, there's always, it's something that we've not been through before. And I have a really strong team of people that I consult with. But, making these decisions is very hard. And yes, people don't agree with them. Some people think we're doing too much, and other people think we're not doing enough. And it's, we're trying to balance everything with people's health. I think things that I have learned are that the words we use to support each other and to get through this are really important. And that's what keeps us grounded. And then I look to young people, I look to the elders in my life who support me, who may not agree with everything I say, but recognize that we're trying to make the best decisions we can in a really challenging and difficult time. And, making sure that we have opportunities to find joy every day. I think that's really important, whether it's going outside and running around or looking at the flowers. I found my first rose of the season at my house the other day. These are really important things for all of us, going home and hugging our parents or our siblings and making sure that we connect with each other and that we are kind to each other. And if we start with that and we end with that, that's what gets us through the day.
Thank you.
Last, Sophia, Our Lady of Sorrows.
Hello, my name is Sophia from Our Lady of Sorrows School, and our question is, how do you stay true to yourself and to your strategies when other provinces and countries may be doing things differently?
Oh, yes, there's lots of that, isn't there? How do we do it? You know what? We have a very strong team and we look at what's happening here. We recognize that things are different in different provinces. We're a really big country and things are different around the world. So we try and learn as much as we can about what's happening around the world and then apply it to what's happening here. But it's challenging because you never know if you're right, if you've done enough, if you've done too much, until you're at the end of it. So we always, I think all of us do this. We second guess ourselves. We think, oh, is it the right thing or not? But we have to have confidence that if we're looking at the right information, asking all those right questions, making sure we have people who are providing us advice, and that we're not alone. If we have concerns, there's somebody we can go to ask for advice to. And so I have a group of people that I talk to regularly, but some days it's really, really challenging. And I go back to what we're trying to do. We're trying to prevent transmission of disease, support people as much as possible, and use the right language that helps us recognize that we are all in this together, though we don't always know everybody's story. And that's why I came up with the words that I use all the time about being kind, because being kind means that we understand each other and that we're looking out for each other. And being calm means recognizing that we don't have all the answers, we don't always know what's going on, but we can manage our own response to it, and we can take a deep breath and just be calm, and we'll figure it out. And that's, of course, what keeps us all safe.
Madam Maikai.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bonnie Henry. You have been an excellent educator. Thank you to your team. Together, as you can see, this is very relevant and on the heart of many of our students, our children, our teachers and administrators. And we thank you for your leadership and your care. And we'd like to offer you a gift of prayer.
Thank you.
Before I do so, do you have any last words for us? Anything that we can share as an extra message that we can take to our communities? I'd like to give you the final words before I give you our gift of prayer.
I think just to remember that this has been an extraordinary year, but we are strong and resilient, and we are that way if we're kind to each other and we support each other, and that we learn from this and we remember to reach out and to be kind to each other in the future as well. 2020 is all about COVID, but now's our time to say, okay, what have we learned and how can we be better together?
I agree, and we will do, in return, we want to do our part and share and help in spreading that message everywhere in BC and around the world. And our final thank you is a gift. We'd like to pray for you and your team as we pray together. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Lord God, teach us your ways where we may be kind to one another, calm in the storm, and safe under your care. Give us courage to be steadfast and to carry on in love and thanks, remembering that every day is a gift. Amen. Au nom du Père et du Fils et du Saint-Esprit. Merci encore. Thank you again. And thank you to all of our students in schools and the teachers and the teams that made this possible. What a gift this morning this has been, and very a great learning experience, of course. Have a wonderful day.
You're our hero. Au revoir.
Au revoir. À bientôt.
Au revoir. Bientôt.
Have a nice rest of your day to everyone, and especially to you, Dr. Bonnie Henry. Bye-bye.
Thank you.